The humid air of the gym hung heavy, punctuated by the rhythmic clanking of weights and the occasional grunt of exertion. Karen strode through the crowded space, her lips pursed in a perpetual scowl as she eyed the other members with disdain. Suddenly, her gaze landed on a woman doing squats, her toned muscles rippling beneath her skin-tight leggings. Karen's eyes narrowed, and a sneer crept across her face. "Look at that," she muttered to her friend, Tiffany, who dutifully trailed behind her. "Someone's been skipping leg day." Tiffany giggled nervously, casting a hesitant glance at the unsuspecting woman. "I don't know, Karen. She looks pretty fit to me." But Karen was having none of it. With a huff, she sauntered over to the woman, her hips swaying in an exaggerated display. "Excuse me," she called out, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I couldn't help but notice your form. You might want to try adding some more weight. You look a little weak." The woman paused mid-squat, her brow furrowing in confusion. "I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure I know what I'm doing." Her tone was calm, but there was a hint of steel behind it. Karen scoffed, placing a hand on her hip. "Oh, really? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're about to topple over. Maybe you should stick to the treadmill, sweetheart." The woman straightened, her eyes narrowing. "I'm actually a certified personal trainer. I think I know a thing or two about proper form." She crossed her arms, her muscles bulging slightly. Karen's face flushed with anger, her fingers curling into tight fists. "Well, I'm sorry, but I don't think your expertise applies here. Some of us actually care about our bodies, you know." The woman took a step forward, her jaw set in determination. "Look, I don't know who you think you are, but you don't get to come in here and body shame me. If you have a problem with my form, I'd be happy to show you how it's done." Karen's eyes widened, and for a moment, she seemed at a loss for words. Then, a cruel smile spread across her face. "Oh, it's on, sweetheart. Let's see what you've got." As the two women squared off, the air in the gym grew thick with tension. The other members, sensing the impending showdown, gathered around, their eyes wide with anticipation. This was sure to be a fight worth watching. The woman, whose name was Samantha, wasted no time in accepting Karen's challenge. She strode over to the squat rack, her movements confident and fluid. Grabbing a barbell, she effortlessly loaded it with several hefty plates, much to Karen's surprise. "All right, Karen," Samantha said, a hint of amusement in her voice. "Let's see what you've got." Karen, determined not to back down, sauntered over to the rack and eyed the formidable weight. She hesitated for a moment, mentally calculating whether she could match Samantha's display of strength. But her pride got the better of her, and with a defiant toss of her head, she began to load the bar. Tiffany, sensing the impending disaster, placed a tentative hand on Karen's arm. "Karen, I don't think this is such a good idea. Maybe you should start with something a little lighter." Karen shrugged her off, her eyes narrowed in concentration. "I've got this, Tiffany. Just watch and learn." Stepping up to the bar, Karen gripped it tightly and began to descend, her face contorted in a mask of determination. But as she reached the bottom of the squat, her knees wobbled, and she struggled to push back up. Samantha watched, a small smile playing on her lips as Karen strained and grunted, her form quickly deteriorating. Finally, with a desperate cry, Karen let the bar crash back onto the rack, the weights clanging loudly and drawing the attention of the entire gym. Panting heavily, she glared at Samantha, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "See?" she spat. "I told you were weak. Maybe next time you should stick to the treadmill, sweetheart." Samantha shook her head, her expression a mix of amusement and disappointment. "Karen, you clearly have a lot to learn. Why don't you let me show you how it's done?" Without waiting for a response, Samantha stepped up to the bar and effortlessly completed a perfect set of squats, her muscles rippling with each movement. The onlookers erupted in applause, and Karen's face burned with humiliation. As Samantha racked the bar, She turned to Karen, her eyes narrowed. Maybe next time, you should think twice before trying to shame someone at the gym. We're all here to better ourselves, not to judge others. With that, she turned and walked away, leaving a stunned and disgraced Karen in her wake. Karen stood there, her face burning with humiliation as the other gym-goers whispered and snickered behind her back. Tiffany, ever the loyal friend, tried to console her, but Karen would have none of it. "Can you believe the nerve of that woman?" She fumed, her hands clenched into tight fists. "Who does she think she is?" Tiffany fidgeted nervously, her gaze darting around the gym. "I don't know, Karen. She did kind of embarrass you in front of everyone." Karen scoffed, her nostrils flaring. "Embarrassed me? Ha! That's rich coming from someone who obviously has no idea how to work out properly." She shook her head, her eyes narrowed in determination. "Well, I'm not about to let her get away with this. I'm going to show her who's boss around here." Tiffany's eyes widened, and she took a step back. "What are you going to do, Karen?" But Karen was already storming off, her mind racing with a plan to take down her newfound rival. As she made her way to the locker room, her fingers dug into the strap of her gym bag, her knuckles turning white. Once inside, Karen quickly changed out of her workout clothes and into a sleek, figure-hugging dress. She then applied a fresh coat of makeup, taking extra care to accentuate her features. Satisfied with her transformation, she strode out of the locker room, her hips swaying with a newfound confidence. Scanning the gym, Karen quickly spotted Samantha, who was now helping a client with their form. Plastering a saccharine smile on her face, Karen sauntered over to the pair, her high heels clicking against the floor. "Excuse me, Samantha," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I was wondering if we could have a little chat. In private, perhaps." Samantha looked up, surprise registering on her face. Sure, I guess." She turned to her client and said, "Give me a minute, okay?" The client nodded and stepped aside, clearly intrigued by the unfolding drama. As Samantha followed Karen to a secluded corner of the gym, Karen's mind was racing. She had a plan, and this time, she was determined to come out on top. Samantha followed Karen to a quiet corner of the gym, her brow furrowed in confusion. She had no idea what Karen had in mind, but she couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't going to be good. "All right, Karen," Samantha said, crossing her arms over her chest. "What's this all about?" Karen flashed a saccharine smile, her eyes glinting with mischief. "Oh, Samantha, I just wanted to apologize for my behavior earlier. It was completely uncalled for, and I hope you can forgive me." Samantha blinked, taken aback by the sudden change in Karen's demeanor. Well, I appreciate the apology, but I have to say, I'm a little surprised. I didn't exactly expect you to be the one apologizing." Karen's smile widened, and she placed a hand on Samantha's arm. "Oh, I know, and that's why I wanted to make it up to you. You see, I feel just awful about the way I've been treating you, and I'd love to make it up to you with a little reward." Samantha's eyes narrowed, and she took a step back, her suspicion growing. "A reward? What exactly do you have in mind?" Karen leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Well, I happen to have some connections at the local fitness magazine, and I'd be more than happy to put in a good word for you. You know, get you featured in an article or something. Maybe even a cover shoot." Samantha's eyes widened, and for a moment, she was speechless. "A cover shoot? Are you serious?" Karen nodded, her smile never wavering. "Absolutely. I know how important it is for fitness professionals like yourself to get that kind of exposure, and I'd be more than happy to make it happen, if you're willing to play ball, that is." Samantha's brow furrowed, and she shook her head. "I'm sorry, Karen, but I don't think I can accept your offer. I appreciate the gesture, but I don't feel comfortable trading favors for publicity. That's just not how I operate." Karen's smile faltered, and her eyes narrowed. "Oh, come on, Samantha. Think about it. This could be a huge opportunity for you. Don't you want to get your name out there? Show the world what you can do." Samantha's expression hardened, and she took a step forward, her voice firm. "Look, Karen, I get that you're trying to make amends, but I'm not interested in your little quid pro quo. I don't need your connections or your publicity to prove my worth. I know what I'm capable of, and that's all that matters to me." Karen's face flushed with anger, and she opened her mouth to retort, but Samantha cut her off. "If you really want to make it up to me, Karen, I suggest you start by treating the other gym-goers with a little more respect. We're all here to better ourselves, and we don't need your judgment or your condescension." With that, Samantha turned and walked away, leaving a fuming Karen in her wake. Karen stood there, her mouth agape, as Samantha walked away. She couldn't believe that her carefully crafted plan had failed so spectacularly. Tiffany, who had been hovering nearby, tentatively approached her friend. "Karen, are you okay?" Karen whirled around, her eyes blazing with fury. Okay. Do I look okay to you, Tiffany? That woman just rejected my offer. Can you believe the nerve of her?" Tiffany flinched, taking a step back. I'm sorry, Karen. I guess she didn't want your help after all." Karen let out a frustrated growl, her fingers digging into the soft flesh of her palms. "Well, she's going to regret that decision. Nobody says no to me and gets away with it." Tiffany's eyes widened, and she placed a trembling hand on Karen's arm. "Karen, what are you going to do?" But Karen had already started walking away, her mind racing with a new plan. She knew that she couldn't let Samantha get away with humiliating her in front of the entire gym. She had to find a way to get back at her, to show her who was really in charge. As she made her way to the locker room, Karen's lips curled into a malicious grin. She had an idea, and it was going to be glorious. Once inside, Karen quickly changed back into her workout clothes and began rummaging through her gym bag. She pulled out a small bottle, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "Perfect," she murmured, tucking the bottle into the pocket of her shorts. Stepping back out into the gym, Karen immediately spotted Samantha, who was now working with a group of clients. Slowly, she made her way over to the water fountain, her gaze never leaving Samantha's back. When Samantha finally paused to take a sip of water, Karen saw her chance. Casually, she strolled over to the fountain, pretending to refill her own water bottle. As Samantha's lips touched the spout, Karen quickly uncapped the bottle and poured a generous amount of its contents into the water. A wicked smile spread across Karen's face as she watched the unsuspecting Samantha take a long, refreshing gulp. Little did she know that she had just swallowed a potent laxative, courtesy of Karen's twisted scheme. It was only a matter of time before Samantha would feel the effects, and when she did, Karen would be there to witness her humiliation. This was going to be the ultimate payback, and Karen couldn't wait to see the look on Samantha's face. As Samantha continued her training session, she was blissfully unaware of the sinister plot that Karen had set in motion. Little did she know that the water she had just consumed was laced with a powerful laxative, courtesy of her spiteful gym rival. Karen, on the other hand, was giddy with anticipation, her eyes darting back and forth as she waited for the inevitable. She couldn't wait to see the look on Samantha's face when the effects of the laxative finally took hold. Minutes ticked by, and just when Karen was beginning to think that her plan had failed, Samantha suddenly paused mid-sentence, her brow furrowing in discomfort. "Excuse me, I need to use the restroom," she said, her voice strained as she hurried away from her clients. Karen's lips curled into a triumphant grin as she watched Samantha's retreating form. This was it, her moment of reckoning. Quickly, she excused herself from Tiffany's side and made her way to the women's locker room, her heart pounding with excitement. Pushing open the door, Karen peered inside, her eyes scanning the stalls. There, at the far end, she could hear the unmistakable sound of retching and groaning. A wicked chuckle escaped her lips as she made her way toward the sound, her footsteps echoing in the tiled room. Reaching the last stall, Karen paused, her ear pressed against the door. "Samantha," she called out, her voice dripping with false concern. "Are you all right in there?" The only response was a muffled cry of distress, followed by the sound of rapid flushing. Karen waited, her fingers trembling with anticipation, until finally the stall door swung open, revealing a disheveled and miserable-looking Samantha. "Karen?" Samantha gasped, her face pale and beaded with sweat. "What did you do?" Karen feigned a look of innocence, her eyes wide. "Why, Samantha, I have no idea what you're talking about. I was just concerned when I heard you weren't feeling well." Samantha's eyes narrowed, and she took a step forward, her hands clenched into fists. "Don't play dumb with me, Karen. I know you had something to do with this." Karen took a step back, her lips curling into a sneer. "Maybe you should have just accepted my offer, Samantha. Then you wouldn't be in this mess." Samantha's expression darkened, and she lunged toward Karen, her hands outstretched. "You bitch. I'm going to." But before she could finish her sentence, Samantha was struck by another wave of nausea, and she was forced to dash back into the stall, the sound of retching echoing through the room. Karen chuckled, her triumph tinged with a hint of malice. "Enjoy your little, situation, Samantha. I'll be sure to let the others know how you're doing." With that, Karen turned and strutted out of the locker room, leaving a miserable and humiliated Samantha in her wake. As Karen sauntered out of the locker room, a smug grin plastered across her face. She couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. She had finally gotten her revenge on Samantha, the infuriating fitness coach who had dared to challenge her authority at the gym. Tiffany, who had been waiting anxiously outside, immediately perked up as she saw Karen approaching. "Well, what happened? Did you?" Karen held up a hand, silencing her friend. "Let's just say, Samantha is dealing with a little gastrointestinal issue at the moment." She chuckled, her eyes gleaming with malice. Tiffany's eyes widened, and she took a step back, her expression a mixture of shock and unease. "Karen, you didn't." "Oh, come on, Tiffany," Karen scoffed. "Don't tell me you're feeling sorry for her. After the way she embarrassed me in front of everyone? She had it coming." Tiffany fidgeted nervously, her gaze darting around the gym. "I don't know, Karen. That seems a little extreme, don't you think?" Karen rolled her eyes, her patience wearing thin. "Extreme? Please. I'm just giving her a taste of her own medicine. She needs to learn that you don't mess with me and get away with it." Tiffany opened her mouth to protest, but Karen cut her off with a wave of her hand. "Look, Tiffany, if you can't handle a little payback, then maybe you should just go home. I don't need your guilt trip right now." Tiffany hesitated, her brow furrowed in concern. "But Karen, what if this goes too far? What if someone finds out?" Karen let out a derisive laugh. "Find out? Please. As long as we keep our mouths shut, nobody will ever know. And even if they did, do you really think anyone's going to believe Samantha over me?" Tiffany fidgeted, her hands trembling slightly. "I don't know, Karen. This just doesn't feel right." Karen's expression hardened, and she fixed Tiffany with a stern glare. "Well, that's your problem, not mine. If you can't support me in this, then you can just stay out of my way." With that, Karen turned on her heel and strode away, leaving a conflicted and uneasy Tiffany in her wake. As she made her way back to the main gym, Karen couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. She had finally gotten the upper hand, and this time, there was no way Samantha was going to come out on top. As the hours ticked by, Karen's smug satisfaction slowly began to fade. Samantha was nowhere to be seen, and the gym had grown unusually quiet. Tiffany, who had been hovering nervously nearby, finally approached her friend. "Karen, I think we should go. I have a bad feeling about this." Karen scoffed, waving her hand dismissively. "Oh, relaxed, Tiffany. Samantha's probably just holed up in the bathroom, waiting for the effects to wear off. She'll be back soon enough, and when she is, I'll be here to rub it in her face. Tiffany's brow furrowed, and she took a step closer. Karen, I really think we should leave. This isn't right, and you know it. But Karen was having none of it. Not right? Please. Samantha had it coming, and you know it. Now, are you going to help me or not? Tiffany hesitated, her eyes darting around the gym. I can't, Karen. I'm sorry, but I can't be a part of this. It's gone too far. Karen's eyes narrowed, and her lips curled into a snarl. Fine. Be that way. But don't come crying to me when Samantha decides to retaliate. Tiffany opened her mouth to protest, but before she could, the locker room door burst open, and a frantic-looking Samantha emerged. Karen, she shouted, her eyes wild with fury. What did you do to me? Karen's face paled, and she took a step back, her bravado suddenly evaporating. I don't know what you're talking about, Samantha. Samantha stalked toward her, her muscles rippling beneath her skin-tight leggings. Don't play dumb with me, you bitch. I know you tampered with my water. You could have seriously hurt me. Karen's eyes widened, and she glanced around the gym, desperate for help. But the other members had all stopped what they were doing, their attention fixed on the confrontation unfolding before them. Samantha continued her tirade, her voice rising with each word. Do you have any idea how much damage you could have done? I could have been hospitalized. And for what? Because you couldn't handle losing in front of everyone. Karen opened her mouth to protest, but Samantha cut her off. Save it, Karen. I'm done with your entitled, bullying behavior. From now on, you stay the hell away from me and my clients, or I'll make sure you never set foot in this gym again. With that, Samantha turned on her heel and stormed out of the gym, leaving a stunned and humiliated Karen in her wake. Tiffany, who had been watching the exchange with a mixture of relief and concern, cautiously approached her friend. Karen, I think we should go. Karen, her face flushed with shame, nodded mutely, and the two women quietly made their way out of the gym, their tails firmly tucked between their legs. As they walked to their car, Karen couldn't help but feel a sense of regret. She had let her pride and her desire for revenge cloud her judgment, and in the end, it had backfired spectacularly. Samantha had been right. She had taken things too far, and now she was facing the consequences. As for Tiffany, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of pity for her friend. Karen's behavior had been unacceptable, but deep down, she knew that Karen's sense of entitlement and need for control stemmed from a deeper insecurity. Perhaps this experience would be the wake-up call she needed to change her ways. For now, the two women walked in silence, the weight of their actions heavy on their minds. But one thing was certain. They had both learned a valuable lesson of the consequences of their choices, and it was a lesson they would not soon forget.